It's still short.
Sorry, Ine.
No problem at all. Like I said, I'm working at the Research Institute for Nature and Forest in Belgium. I'm just a researcher like you all are, tracking aquatic animals, and I'm involved in the cost action that runs on the European Tracking Network, and that's why I'm here. I want to introduce you to the European Tracking Network so that you can be involved and that the community of tracking people in Europe gets bigger. So I will give an introduction to what the European Tracking Network is. It's actually fairly easy. It's a network to track aquatic animals, pan-European, but as much as it is a network of devices that listen to tags which are included in aquatic animals, it is also a network of researchers. And the backbone of the European Tracking Network is a central database. So in fact, ETN is, it has two main parts. So one part, the most important one, is a database, which is free to us to work on it and to use it. The other part is a cost action. The cost action adds to the database that it's a network of receivers collaborating on creating this pan-European network of acoustic or telemetry researchers and devices. And and working on the establishment and the maintenance of the database. Both things are led by VLIS. VLIS is the Flemish Marine Institute. So it's an institute in Belgium, but it's a data center and a knowledge center. So not really a research center. And VLIS is the instance that developed the database and that maintains it with some ICT people. And they do this with funds from LifeWatch and Atlantos. So the center has other databases as well, apart from animal tracking. And they always find funds to develop and maintain such databases. But the guy, I will show him in a minute, that actually works on the database is also a researcher tracking fish. And we collaborate already for now almost 10 years on tracking fish in Belgium. And at a certain point, we found out that we had a lot of tracking devices in Belgium, thanks to LifeWatch, also the fund that gave us money to buy infrastructure. So at a certain moment in Belgium, we had quite a network of receivers. And the Netherlands, some colleagues there had it as well. And our colleagues in France had it as well, because all the researchers are tracking the aquatic animals. And at a certain moment, we thought, okay, in North America, the researchers have large networks of receivers. In Australia, they have it as well. South Africa has it as well. But in Europe, we're still like a loose set of all regional projects. We should actually do something about it, and we should try to bring everybody together so that also Europe has its own network, which is one large network. And that was actually the rationale for VLIS and for Jan to make work of making a proposal to have cost money, so to apply for a cost project. The cost project, it's money from Europe that can be used to come together and to have meetings. It's not money to do stuff, it's to come together, and on these meetings you can collaborate on things. So this is the logo of cost. So just to clarify that cost is not that we get money to do really work, but it's money to come together and then collaborate and make sure that we actually do nice work. The backbone of the cost action is, of course, this database that brings us all together. The cost action itself, it already started in 2009, and normally it would end at the end of this year, but thanks to COVID, we got an extension, so we now know since this week that the action will run up until December 2023. The database, on the contrary, it's not ending, it's forever. So that's a big difference between these two components. So to make a further introduction, I will just introduce you to, on the one hand, the database, and on the other hand, a bit on the cost action. So about the database, so the database currently is able to store data on acoustic telemetry and on data storage tags. The other types of telemetry that we are using, PID satellite radio, therefore the database is not extended yet or adapted yet. But we are now currently working on extending the database for PID data as well. The data, they span different habitats. It's not only networks in the marine sites, it's also tracking networks in rivers and as well as in lakes. And it spans the data set and project, they span different scales. There are projects in the database which are about research questions on large scales, where 1D telemetry is done. There are also a lot of examples of very small scale studies that study animals at fine scales with 2 or 3D telemetry. So yeah, it spans quite some different things. Something that is important to know is that every telemetry project that you all have and that will be imported into the database goes through 3 steps in the beginning for the data import. A first step, when you want to include your project into the database, is always that you start with step 1, giving information about your project very general. For instance, a small abstract on what the project or the study is about, as well as what funds you got for to do the job, other contributors, and so on. So it's general info that later on at the portal of the database will be shown when you click one of the dots here. So every project that is included with this information in step 1 will appear on this map. And when you click such a dot, you will see who are the contributors and a small abstract on it. Once you have included project information, the next step to do is to include metadata on your study. So not detection data yet. First, the things you have to do is to include like what are the receivers that I'm using, and you have to give a lot of parameters that describe your devices. Then you do the same for the tags you are using. In another step, you also include metadata on the animals you are tracking. And then the last step is that you include info on deployments, where deployments are that you give metadata on where you have installed your receivers. So the deployments, they are actually the link between what devices you are using, where they are installed, and so where your animal is detected. And then the last step, once you have done this, then you can only upload the real detection data. So I think this is already important to know that these are the big steps. But how these things are done, this will be explained tomorrow by Ine van der Knaap. And maybe she will give as much as info already and details, but of course there will be steps maybe for which you will need more info afterwards. I can already say all needed info can be found on the website, and there are also people that can help you out if you have further questions. I will give the contact info soon. So how is the data flow working of the database? So I already talked about these 3 steps, which are actually part of the first step, the data upload. And so it's first you upload project metadata, your detection data, like I explained. Then the data go into the database. It's mostly done by making use of CSV files, very easy. The data are stored in a PostgreSQL database. And then once the data are in, they can be visualized. For this, there is a LiveWatch Data Explorer developed. It's a Shiny application, which you can just go online. I will also show it right away. And then there is also another way of visualizing your data and making analysis. That is that you can ask your data from the database by making use of an online RStudio server. And there is also a package developed, the ETN package, that helps you to retrieve your data from the database in R. But you can also always just go to the database itself and get your data of it there, but I will show it just right now. So first, how to access the database. That's actually just done by this link. I will also share the presentation afterwards, so you can just go there and click the links, so that you are directed to the right page directly. I have to
share the
yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Sorry for the people at home. I know that I have to switch sharing. I will not do it right now. I would suggest you click the link if you get the presentation. It's just that I want to show you very quickly where you end up, but you're not missing a lot by not seeing it now. So this is like where it all starts. It's the access to the database. You come up to the data portal. This is what we call the data portal. There you have to register if you're not a user yet. And if you are a user, you are including your login info. Oh, and then here we are. So that's the way how to access the database. Then to visualize your data, you need another link. This is the link to the Shiny application, so the one I talked about. So we call it the Data Explorer. The Data Explorer, so it's also just an online web page, and it just makes it easier for you to quickly check some info on your data. For instance, you want to see like, where did I exactly include my receiver? So you go there, you make some filtering on your own data, and you create, for instance, a map that shows, here are my active receivers, and oh yes, this receiver had so much detections, the other one so much. So there are, like in this application, a few tabs, and it helps you to, one, create a quick map of info you want on your data, and some other tabs have like a prepared graph that shows some very basic info. So it's just a good way of checking quickly some things on your own data. And then the last part, how do you download your data? So on the one hand, you can simply do it in the data portal itself, but it's much easier if you go to the online RStudio server, which you can go to by following this link. And in this RStudio server, you need to code to download your data from the database, but therefore, to make the coding easier to retrieve your data in the RStudio server, the ETN package was developed. So colleagues of my institute, data managers, they have worked on this package, and they have developed a lot of very easy functionalities that you can apply to, for instance, get all your project info, get all your tag info for a certain project, get receiver info, and so on. So you can do, with very easy functions, you can filter your own data in a very easy way. And then you can start analyzing the data, of course, right away in R. Or you can choose to download them through the online app and work locally in R on your laptops. Here I included a link that goes to YouTube, because on YouTube there is a recording of a webinar about the ETN package. So you can just follow this webinar again at home, and to already get familiar with the ETN package, I think it's like the quickest way to get the best functionalities to use to download your data in the RStudio server. Then some database statistics, the current state. The database has been growing a lot the past 3 years, so that we now end up with more than 2,000 receivers being in the water currently at this moment. There are over 500 million detections so far of more than 15,000 fishes or other animals, so animals, over 90 species, more than 300 users of around 100 institutes, which is nice. Here, just a quick look on how many detections per species there is. And yeah, Atlantic salmon and European eel are the winners of the first ones in the class to be detected and tagged and studied. This is a quick view on the current active network. So every dot on this map, it's not a project, but it's a receiver. So it's really a location where a receiver is in the water right now. Yeah, you saw your receiver up. We have quite a lot in Belgium, but it's very dense here and here. Okay, very important to know about the data policy. So for people that are not using the database yet, I guess the biggest question is, if I include my data, what happens with it? Do other people see my data? Because maybe you don't want it in a first stage when you're working on your own data still. So info on what is done with your data and on moratorium rules for the data can be found in the data policy. The data policy is just a PDF document of 2 pages, and it can be found on the website also. I will show also the link to the website, by the way, that contains all the information at the end of the presentation. So important to know about the data policy. You are the owner of your data, and that stays always like so. If at any moment you wish to withdraw your data from the database, that's possible. Then you have to contact FLIS and they can take the data out. With regards to moratorium rules, so this is just the first part of a copy and paste out of this PDF document. But what does it mean? I summarize it here. There is no moratorium on tags and receivers. So if you put in your your data, everybody can see what tags you have and what receivers you have and where the receivers are located. Because that's the strength of using the database, that we can see of each other, oh, this guy is, or lady is tagging a fish over there, I want to know about this, I am interested in the data, I can contact his or her. So no moratorium on tags and receivers. Also, by default, there is no moratorium on deployments. This means, so with the receivers, it's only you see what receivers an institute or a person has, but you don't see yet where the receivers are, because that info is in the deployments. And by default, there is no moratorium on deployments. But you have the possibility to ask for exceptions. In certain cases, like in busy areas where also like receivers could be stolen or whatever, you might want that it's not publicly available, and then you can ask for it, and then a moratorium can be included. For animal data and detections data, so what animals you are tagging and where they can be found or where they were detected, that is a moratorium by default. And also by default, this moratorium lasts 4 years. If for one reason or another you want to extend it, after these 4 years, that's possible. But automatically after 4 years, the data will be public, which actually means other researchers in our network will be able to see them. But in fact, I would never expect that people not doing telemetry will ever find these data on the internet. They don't know about this, and they don't know where to go and where to find the data. So I think it's really, there are only really positive aspects about the fact that some data are public available. Then something special also, so tag owners, they have also access, so apart from these rules, they have access to deployment info of the receivers where their tags are detected on. This means, for instance, if Jelger, for instance, has a network in the Netherlands and I am tagging fish in Belgium and my fish swim through his network, then I can see this. So I can see, these receivers in the Netherlands have detected my tags, and I can contact Jelger and say, look, we found out something very nice and let's collaborate on this. And the other way around as well, you can see tags of others on your detection list and so on your receivers, which is in fact obvious because you have it in the detection list, but you can look up in the database from who these tags are. That's the nice thing, of course. So what's in it for you? What are the positive aspects of using the database? To my opinion, and I just say this as a researcher because I don't have any benefit with presenting cost here or whatever, but there are only positive aspects, and your data will be fair. That's what you want, that your data are fair, that they are findable, that they are accessible, that they are interoperable, and that others also can use them. With regards to being findable and accessible, I think then it's over with messy organized data, with data that are hard to find for yourself even, but also for others, with metadata that are missing because you just forgot to include them in your Excel or whatever. It's much easier to reconstruct your own data sets and make conclusions afterwards. About interoperability, this is something that the cost action works on. So the group of people in the cost action to make sure that the network in the first place is compatible with the other networks in the world, which is very important if you're studying animals that move over very long distances. But also it makes sure that the standards are quite the same among all these networks, standards on how data are treated and stored, but also even data policies among the networks, which is important. And on the other hand, very important, I think, is that the cost action really works on making all the different devices that we are using compatible, because there are different manufacturers for these devices. I come back to this in a minute. And it's, the idea is that tags of one manufacturer can be detected on receivers of another manufacturer in a network nearby, because fish will swim long distances when you analyze them in rivers and at sea. Yeah, here is just a map to give an impression of some other projects in the rest of the world, but these are only projects that are managed by OTN, but there are like the ATAP platform is not on the map, and also IMS, for instance, is not on it. But there are other networks in the world as well. I wanted to tell also here, like I put this map here, it's an example of the network we have in Belgium, and then only a little part of receivers that are in the Netherlands. The other receivers still have to be included into the database, that's why they are not on the map. And we had a very nice example very recently of the positive thing about using the database. So my colleague Peter Jan, he tags Twee Chat in the Scheldt River with us in Belgium. But once they leave the Scheldt River, they end up at the sea. Sometimes we detect them on receivers in the North Sea, close to our shore. But for most of the time, we don't know where the chat go during winter, and we're very curious, of course. Like, where do they go in winter? Do they go like to England? Do they go to the north? We don't know. Like a few weeks ago, we were all together at a General Assembly meeting of the cost action, and Peter Jan was sitting together with somebody of the Netherlands. They were really with two at the same computer checking some tags, and suddenly we found out that two of our tagged Twee Chat of last year were detected near the Waddenzee. And these two fish, they came back, and this spring we detected them again here at the network here. So just by using the database both and then sitting together, we found out two of our Twee Chat, apparently in winter, they go to the Netherlands, which is really a nice result. Also, of course, important to make our data reusable for other scientists, but actually really also for next generations. What if you retire and only fish as a hobby? And yeah, even after you die, I mean, it would be great if others still can use your data later on. And then, maybe even most important one, it really facilitates new collaborations and joint papers. As also Jiri mentioned, we should make sure that we collaborate when we want to do nice things in science. This is an example of a joint paper. It's also from my colleague Peter Jan, who was tagging a lot of eels the past years. And so again, in this case, we had the network here in the North Sea, close to the Belgian shore. And at a certain moment, we found tag numbers which were not ours. We looked up. By that time, the database was not in place yet, and we had to contact Vemco and say, from who are these tag numbers? Can we have the contact info? They said, oh, this is from people from the north of the Netherlands. It appeared that eels that were tagged at the border between Germany and the Netherlands, that they swam out and they were detected here in our network. So actually, Jeroen from the Netherlands, yeah, his name is disappeared, Jeroen Huisman and Peter Jan, they collaborated on a paper that now then showed that, because it was not observed before, that eels not only go over England, as found out by the Danish researchers, but that they also swim under England. So they could just simply write a paper about this together, which is nice. Then a little bit about the cost action, and then I am done introducing the European tracking network. So the cost action, yeah, the mission is to track aquatic animals across Europe to better understand them, better protect them, and manage them. So the main aim is to go from a set of loosely projects to go to a pan-European, better managed network of receivers and people. And there are 4 tasks that are put into place to reach the aim. And each of these tasks is worked on by one working group. So we have 4 working groups in the cost action. One group works on the implementation of the database, so further developing the database, improving it. Another group works on making sure that all devices are compatible. Then there is working group 3 works on promoting new infrastructure in Europe. I will quickly show it also in a minute. And the 4th group is working on providing training, like this is what's happening now. Marie making sure that we can be trained here this week. and also disseminating the knowledge on the tracking network. So these are the 4 working groups and some of the people that lead the working groups. I can go quickly over it, and these are the 2 guys leading the cost action. So this is Jan Reubens from VLIS and also Pedro Afonso from the Azores. If you really need any help or have a question, you can always email Jan, but of course we don't want to load him with emails, he's very busy as well. So it's better that you first check the website, contact other people, they are indicated on the website as well, some representatives for your countries, first contact them, but only if you're very in like an SOS situation, maybe you can email Jan as well then.
Not on Wednesdays.
Not on Wednesdays. It doesn't work on Wednesdays. Me either, by the way. Not good.
Today.
Yeah, today is an exception. With pleasure. Yeah, just quickly to show some more other people in the network. This was a picture taken at a meeting in Mallorca. So we had already some very nice meetings. Could meet again very recently in Ireland after all the COVID years. And then important to know, there will be 2 to 3 meetings coming up still. So if you're not part of the cost action, now you are, because you had to apply for this meeting. If you are welcome on these meetings, it's not been said that you can be reimbursed by cost then, but all researchers doing telemetry in Europe are welcome. Then I want to end with like the 4 biggest or nicest achievements of the cost action. There are more, but I just want to shortly go over the 4 most nice ones, I guess. I think the most nice one is that the cost action enabled that all the different gear that we use in Europe is now compatible. We have 4 manufacturers. It's a bit like the story, like with all the different types of chargers that we have for our phones. This is annoying. We just want one charger and that's it. And also the European Commission works on this. For the tracking network, it was the same. We have 4 manufacturers of devices, here indicated by the 4 colors, and we want to make sure all devices are compatible. It was already the case for 3 of the 4 manufacturers. The last one very recently also said, okay, we will jump in and we will make sure that our devices are also compatible. They now need some time to adapt the devices, but they will do it, they said. That's the hot of the press news, actually. Then another achievement is working group 1 makes further improvements on the data flow and on the database, which is nice. Then also something very nice is that some key arrays have been put in place in the meantime. So the aim of the scientific working group was to make sure that within Europe we can close off very important marine straits, because there large migrators are passing by and you want to see it if they do. So these are the arrays that are aimed for, and the ones here in between Scotland and Ireland and the one at the Danish Strait, they are put in place already. For this array, OTN has promised to give funds for receivers once the researchers found money for tags, so it will be very soon also put in the water there. And then the Strait of Gibraltar for this project proposal is submitted now, so we'll see how it goes. So very important then, like I thought, I would give you the link to the website. So you see 2 links here. This is the link to the data portal, but we also have created a website. That's one of the achievements as well of Working Group 4. There is a website so far with all info on it, but we are still working on it. I mean, all the information is there, but it's not structured very well. So if you come up on the website, I think it will be difficult to find some of the important information. So we are now actually improving this structure. So the structure of the website can still change in future, but the content will stay. So definitely visit the website. And then just some important to-dos to you all, and what I want to say as a take-home message. And then also, these are some important to-dos for us, sorry. We will further extend the database for pit telemetry, for instance, but also for including fish positions in the database. So for now, for 2D and 3D tracking, you are only able to include your raw detections, but not yet the calculated fish position. So this is something that needs to be worked on. The website should be restructured, as I said. We will provide more training, look for follow-up on the cost action, because the cost action itself will end. So, and also try to submit more project proposals to have money to do things, to install new infrastructure. So these are the most important to-dos of the cost action. And this is my last message. Please join us, join the database. You will do this anyway, otherwise you will not be here. So register and upload your data. That's the most important message. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ine. Thank you very much for introducing ETN and cross-section and things like this. Do we have a question on this session from the in-person audience? Yes. Rob?
How are people using the data that have been uploaded to the database so far?
Oh, I know it from my colleagues. Like we like if we have, I think that's maybe the one thing that a lot of people probably already done. If you get like detections on your receivers from tags that you don't know, you check if these are ghost detections or not, or real tags, and check like from who are these tags. Can you contact the people? I think that's important. And then, for instance, we really use it by all the data are in, and if we do analysis, we take out the data in the RStudio app and do the analysis. Like I showed, like some papers came out thanks to animals swimming through other networks, so some joint papers. I think that are like the most important things, and I also think important to say, I think we are all also struggling a bit with sometimes finding time to import our data, because sometimes you already have your data, you are already analyzing and using them. So, and then it's difficult to make time, extra time and effort to still include them into another database, which is not your own. I have the same problem. I still have data which are not in it because I didn't find the time yet to include them yet. So I think a lot of the data in Europe out there are not included yet because we're so busy studying the animals. And I would advise that if you start a new study, don't start with your own system, include them right away into the database, because it's not that it's difficult to do. It's just a matter of do it immediately and just use it, and then it's no extra time. So, yeah. I don't know if I am missing some important. Yeah.
Are there benefits to uploading it early in the process rather than years down the line?
Yeah, definitely, because like specifically for the metadata, I mean, it's just good to immediately include them in the database. I would not see why you would use your own data sheets and keep them somewhere in your computer and do not immediately include them in the database. And specifically, like afterwards, when you want to exchange data, you don't have to mess with millions of detections that you need to download on your computer and then see like, oh, my computer is not heavy enough to download all the data. And so for transferring also people data to other scientists, it's very, very useful. So you can, if for instance, like we had it last week, we had to pass on data to you. The data were not in the database yet, and I was like, damn it, this is stupid because we had to download them. Rachel mentioned my laptop cannot handle them, it's too much. How will we do it? If they were in the database, then I would say to Vlis, give RenNL access to my detections, and that's it, and then he can work on it. So, yeah. That was the one that I was missing.
Thanks. Guys, to do not get some delay, so we will skip the question from the virtual audience as well as other questions from the in-present audience. And please contact Ine in case you want to ask some specific questions. So I'm going to stop recording this part. And